On today's show, 3 of the Nets' 5 rookies remain out of the rotation 10 games into the season. Is Brooklyn's development plan cause for concern? I'll answer that right now.
You are Locked On Nets, your daily Brooklyn Nets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to Locked On Nets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Now, the #1 sports podcast network. It's your team, the Brooklyn Nets, every single day. I'm Erik Slater, Brooklyn Nets beat reporter for ClutchPoints.com. Thank you for making me your first listen of the day. The show is 100% free on all those great platforms. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. And on today's episode, it's Fan Take Friday. I took questions from Nets fans on a wide range of subjects, including Brooklyn's rookie development plan, potential trades, the NBA's tank landscape, and more. So rolling on through it, taking these in the order they came in. First question, who is in charge of the team? Sean Marks and Jordi Fernandez are not on the same page. Marks is trying to tank and Jordi is trying to win. Feels like the same process like last year that got us only the 8th pick. Should ownership get involved to pick a lane? Okay, this is something that I've seen from a fair amount of Nets fans, this concern that the coaching staff and Jordi is not aligned with the front office, with ownership. And it seems like that narrative or that thought process is arising because this is a tanking season and Jordi is coaching and trying to win a lot of these games that the Nets are playing in. But this is a tanking season. Like, there's no doubt about that. And I've said it and I'll continue to say it. There is alignment between the coaching staff, between the front office, between ownership. And I've said this about tanking since, we've been in this situation with the Nets. The way that tanks go, organizations tank. Front offices, ownership, tank. Players don't, and coaches are sometimes caught in the middle. But if you're doing it right, the way that a tank and this should go is that the front office, the organization, decides which player on a roster. Obviously, that should be, geared towards a tanking agenda, handicapping the roster, as frustrating as that is. And then if you need to during the season, there's cautious injury approaches. Guys might be held out on certain nights. There might be, dictating what the rotations look like. But the coach in a proper tank, the way that I think a functional organization should run, there should be alignment. You might be caught in the middle, but you should be trying to win theoretically and coaching and doing some of those things. And the Nets are really executing this tank as, pretty much perfectly as you could imagine. Now, we'll talk about the rookie development, and some people have, quibs with that, and I have some as well. But in terms of the tank, the Nets are 1-10. They're the worst team in the league by far right now. Like, you look at the numbers across the board, they're last in all of these categories. And this was the whole point of the offseason was, yes, the Nets had a roster that was too good last year. Jordi coached it well in the beginning of the year, and they got off to a start that was detrimental to the tank. And Sean responded by Jordi-proofing the roster. Like, that's a term we've heard from some other people. That's what Sean did. He Jordi-proofed this roster. And it seems like some Nets fans, I guess, have some PTSD about last year and how that went. And the Nets messing up their draft lottery odds and falling to the 8th pick because they had too much talent. But as soon as they went into the offseason, they had no veteran point guards. They went with 3 rookie point guards exclusively. And if you look at the rest of the roster, there's just no shot creation. There's no defenders. And this is why I said going into the year, I took the under on the Nets at 19.5 wins when a lot of people were concerned that it was going to be the same thing as last year. I had no concerns that this team was going to win too many games because you look at the roster, and that's what Sean has done. Sean has Jordi-proofed the roster, and Jordi, yes, he's coaching to try to win, and despite that, the Nets are 1-10. So that is, if you're looking at it, or if you're like a pro-tank person, or you're rooting for the tank, like, that's a positive, and they're doing a good job with the tank in that regard. The reason that Jordi is coaching to try to win some of these games is A, because he's an extremely competitive guy, and B, he's trying to keep some semblance of sanity and continuity in the locker room. And that's a reason why he's playing some of these veterans. He's not just playing all the rookies now. He hasn't benched some of these other guys yet in favor of the rookies. It's because he's trying to show to the locker room and show to the team that he's putting his best foot forward and coaching to win. And you have to do that somewhat, especially in the beginning of the year, to keep sanity, to keep buy-in in the locker room and all of that. How long does that have to continue for? We'll see. And I don't think it'll be too much longer. It's probably like as we're getting towards a trade deadline and stuff like that, a lot of things are going to change, and probably even before that. But there is alignment between ownership, between the front office. Ownership doesn't have to get involved and pick a lane because a lane has already been picked. And that was when they made this roster, clearly one of the worst in the league, that should not be able to compete in many games. And that has been the case early this season. And that's why they're 1-10. And they are going to be one of the top teams in the draft lottery standing. So that's how I'm seeing that. Next question on a similar note, why is it that we're 11 games into the season and fans think that rookies aren't being developed because they haven't been playing in front of vets, especially when Jordy said he wanted to get them 60 games between Long Island and Brooklyn. He didn't say 82 games. Another thing that I'm seeing from the fan base is, some frustrations that some of the rookies aren't playing, some concerns about that. And I understand, because I do think there are some rookies, particularly like Danny Wolf, who I'll get into in a second, who I think maybe could have gotten minutes in the last game with Day'Ron Sharp sideline. But yes, through these games, Ben Surratt played the first 5 games, started at point guard. Then him, Danny Wolf, Nolan Troy all got sent down to the G League. Now Yegor Dioman and Drake Powell are the rookies in the rotation. And I feel like, there were some injuries earlier in the year that kept some rookies out of the rotation. Like, I think Drake would have been playing earlier if he didn't hurt his ankle. He's healthy now, and now he's in the rotation. So you have Drake and Yegor, 2 guys who I think should be in the rotation and are. And outside of that, like, you could say Danny Wolf, he's the one that I would have an issue with. But like, the reason that fans are angry about this, I feel like, is because they just want to see all the rookies, which I totally understand. Like, this is a season that is about development. They're not really invested in these vets like Terrence Mann or Tyrese Martin or like even Jalen Wilson at this point. Like, they want to see the rookies play over those guys, and I think that those guys will. But I would say that the Nets are going to use the G League, Long Island, and Brooklyn as development tools. As you noted in the question, that is what Sean Marks said. That's what Jordy Fernandez said. He said, if we get 60 games between Long Island and between the NBA for our rookies, that's a win. And that's what they're aiming for. And they're going to get that done. So you're going to see these rookies playing many minutes. I think fans are frustrated because they want to see all of them out of the gate. But Yegor and Drake are rookies who should definitely be playing. They're playing. Ben and Nolan, I think there's an argument to be made that Ben could be getting minutes over guys like Jalen Wilson or Tyrese Martin, even though obviously he's a far cry from being NBA ready. But him and Nolan, I don't really have a problem with those guys playing in Long Island because Nolan is very far away. He needs those minutes in Long Island. I think Ben could stand to benefit from it, and he's also going to get back into the rotation later in the season. Danny Wolf is the interesting one in the middle, and that brings me to the next question. When will Danny Wolf get more minutes? And that's an interesting question. I talked about this on a prior pod. The Nets had that Day'Ron Sharp injury. He missed the game on Tuesday against the Toronto Raptors. And with him out, the Nets don't have another backup center on the roster. And you think it's Wolf time, bring on Danny. He's going to get some minutes. All the fans started to get jazzed up about it. He gets called up. And then he's on the bench the entire game. And Jordy Fernandez rolls with Noah Clowney playing extended minutes at center with the second unit. And I asked Jordy about it after the game, and he said, I've seen Noah. Noah's got more experience right now. I'm more comfortable with him. So he went with Noah, and that's it. And he did say that everybody will get an opportunity at some point. But I did think that was a curious decision for a Nets team that, this is a rookie in Danny Wolf, who's a rookie, but he's 21 years old. He's 2 years older than a lot of these other rookie guys. He's older than Noah Clowney. So the development clock on him is a little bit different than some of these other rookies. And I'm fine with him spending time in Long Island. But in a game like this, where the Nets don't have Day'Ron Sharp, I feel like Danny Wolf could have gotten some minutes. It's a little frustrating. I said it after that game to see guys like Tyrese Martin and Jalen Wilson are combining for 30 minutes and Danny Wolf is on the bench the whole game. And no disrespect to Tyrese or Jalen. They work really hard. They're great guys. They have some positive attributes to their game. Neither of them are going to be really long-term pieces for this Nets team. It doesn't seem like. I feel like that's highly unlikely at this point. Even a guy like Terrence Mann, or Zaire Williams, those guys are going to play because they're veterans. But I think, Tyrese Martin and Jalen Wilson in a game like that, getting, 30 combined minutes and Danny Wolf getting none when the Nets don't have a backup center in a season that's supposed to be completely about rookie development. I thought that was a little strange. Now, overall, I don't have too much of a problem with Danny spending time in Long Island because the Nets do want to, use Long Island and mine some data, see how they're going to utilize him. Is he a power forward? Is he a center? Where does he best fit? Where does he excel? Where does he struggle? They did the same thing with Noah Clowney, and they kind of, collected that data and determined that he was best suited to play power forward. But the difference is that Noah was 19 when they were collecting that data. Danny's 21 right now. He's older than Noah. Noah's in his 3rd season right now. So that's process has to be sped up. And Danny, I think, has a lot more NBA-ready skills at this point than Noah did during his rookie season when he was spending time in the G League. So I would expect Danny to get some NBA minutes sooner rather than later, but I do think that it was a curious decision not to give him minutes during that game when Day'Ron Sharpe was sidelined. Last couple of questions, then going to go to a break. Do you see Drake taking more minutes from players as they underperform, seeing as how, in theory, he is the best defender of our rookies? And then another question, similar ilk. What are your thoughts on Brooklyn's rookies so far over the last few games? And do you believe the progression of Drake Powell / Yegor Dioman could lead to a Cam Thomas trade at the deadline? If so, which teams do you think would show interest in Thomas? What do you think his value is? So the first one, do I think that Drake will take some minutes from guys as the season progresses if they continue to struggle? Yes. Like, I think Drake is playing a good amount of minutes now, but he only played, I think, 9 minutes during the first half of that Raptors loss. And as the season progresses, I think we're going to see not just Drake, we're just going to see all of these rookies start to get into the lineup, because they said 60 games, between the G League and the NBA, but these guys aren't playing in 60 games in Long Island. So they're going to play in NBA games. All of them, I would expect. Nolan Traore is the one who's furthest away, but we'll see. Even him, I expect him to get NBA minutes. And as the season progresses, you're going to see these guys. Like, I think there could be trades, but you're going to see guys like Tyrese Martin, Jalen Wilson. I don't expect them to be in the rotation the whole season. Terrence Mann could see his minutes scaled back. Zaire Williams could see his minutes scaled back. We're just going to see all of these guys get more time in the rotation. Like, there are guys who are locked into the rotation. MPJ is obviously one. Claxton's one as long as he's here. Day'Ron, if he's here and healthy. Like, all of those guys, there's other ones too. But we're going to see some of these veterans. Like, there's going to be difficult conversations as the season progresses, because the Nets have 5 rookie first-round picks, which has never been done before. They're trying to develop all of them, and they have a roster with a lot of pieces and a lot of veterans that needs to be thinned. It isn't all that thinnable, so there's going to be some difficult conversations. But to answer your question, yes, I do think Drake will get more minutes as the season progresses, as will all of the Nets rookies, and that will push some guys out of the rotation. In regard to could Drake and Yegor's development and their progression lead to a Cam Thomas trade at the deadline? Yes, I think that's a very real possibility. I talked about that on a recent episode with Brian Lewis. I just think that I don't really think, if we're assuming or if we're just, reading the tea leaves and it seems like the Nets don't value Cam Thomas as a long-term piece, he just really doesn't serve a purpose on this roster other than to dominate the ball and take a lot of on-ball reps away from guys like Yegor and Drake, who have shown real promise, and their usage has just skyrocketed, and they're getting a lot more reps and experience since Cam went out with injury. We said, Yegor had this career best game against the Raptors. We had 16 points of these last 3 games. He's at like 11, 4, and 5 on good efficiency. So all of that is a positive. And we talked to him after that Toronto game, and he said it's all about reps, repetition. So yes, I think that a Cam Thomas trade at the deadline, or even before the deadline, it might be closer to that December 15th date as it was with Dennis Schroeder last year. That makes a lot of sense. If so, which teams? Like, it's too early to tell. Like, the Detroit Pistons have been speculated as a team. I just look at teams who need perimeter scoring, who need a little bit of a scoring punch with the second unit. Like, I got another question later on here about the Clippers. Bradley Beal just went out, but they're 3-8. I don't know, like, how much they're looking to do that. It's tough to tell right now. What do I think Cam's value is, though? Go watch that episode with Brian Lewis, but I think it's low, like probably second-round picks, if anything. So that's how I'm seeing that. But we got a lot more questions about the Nets rookies, about their defensive scheme, about Nick Claxton, and some other things. So I'll get into all those when I continue Locked On Nets after a quick break. Guys, when I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. That's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. Guys, I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix in a packet in the morning before the gym or during my midday slump, and it actually tastes amazing. It's become my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized through long days. Hydration has become a non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly, just better overall. And right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNBA. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNBA for 20% off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. The holiday season is right around the corner, and that means it's time to get your home ready. Whether you need more seating for guests, cozy new linens, or fun serveware for holiday hosting, Wayfair's Black Friday sale is here to help you make your space shine. And the best part, you don't have to wait. Wayfair's Black Friday deals are happening all month long with up to 70% off everything from sofas to spatulas. Guys, I recently upgraded my dining chairs and table, and let me tell you, it completely transformed the room. And Wayfair, I couldn't believe how fast everything shipped just in time for the holidays. Browsing through their site, it's easy to find pieces that actually fit your style. Nothing generic, just quality designs that feel personal. So don't miss out on early Black Friday deals. Head to Wayfair.com now to shop Wayfair's Black Friday sale for up to 70% off. That's WAYFAIR.com. Sale ends December 7th. Coming back from the break on today's Locked On Nets episode, this Fan Take Friday, rolling on through all your takes and questions. Next question, why did the Nets draft 4 players that don't fit into their defensive scheme if Jordy isn't willing to adapt to the players' skill sets? I'm not really sure what you're referring to. I guess you're just saying that all of these Nets draftees are not good defenders and they can't play in this aggressive scheme that Jordy wants to play. I would say I don't agree with that on Drake Powell. I think that he's a good defender and he fits well into this. Outside of that, I guess those are the 4 players you're referring to. I'd say they're rookies, and rookies usually aren't good defenders unless they're older or more developed. These are rookies who are 19 years old. Some of them, yes, have defensive concerns. I think Yegor, Saraf, Wolf, Nolan all have some defensive concerns, but I think they all also have good positional size and have some plus attributes that are going to take some time to develop. Defense, especially the defense that the Nets are trying to play, it's very much a cerebral thing. You need to understand positioning, you need to understand rotations, you need to understand a lot of different things. And they're 19 years old, with the exception of Wolf. They're rookies. Their bodies aren't developed, their IQ isn't developed. They're not, ready to contribute. That's a big reason why some of them aren't in the rotation. We talked to Ben Saraf about it right after he got pulled from the rotation. He said he thinks that defense was a big part of it. So why did the Nets draft 4 players that don't fit into their defensive scheme? I think that they think that they do fit in their defensive scheme. They just don't right now. And why did they draft those guys if they don't fit right now? Because they're tanking, and it's all about development, and this is a rebuild. But long-term, we heard Sean Marks say it after the draft, positional size, positional versatility, guys who can make things hard on defense. And if you look at these Nets guys, Danny Wolf, I think there's real concerns about him defensively, but you look at it outside of it, Drake, obviously going to be a good defender. It seems like Yegor and Ben, and even Nolan, they have good positional size. Yegor, they're all ball handlers, point guards, perceivably. Obviously, Yegor could slide to the wing, but Yegor 6'9", Ben 6'6", Nolan 6'4". They need to work on their bodies and get some more bulk to them, but they all have good size, good length. And I think that long-term that those guys have some, the Nets think that those guys have some defensive potential. So that's what I'd say about that. Next question. Do you think Nick Claxton's trade value is higher now than it will ever be? Does his long-term fit with pick-and-roll guards and dislike for Jordy's defense make it so the Nets should trade him? I talked about this yesterday. It seems like you who asked this question watched that episode with Lucas Kaplan. Do I think Nick's trade value right now is higher than it ever will be? No. That 2022-23 season when he was on a much smaller contract and he was having a career season, I think it was probably higher then. Do I think that his trade value is on the upswing right now? I'd say yes, because he's having a career best offensive season. He looks healthy. Now he's going to have to sustain that for a period longer than 11 games. He's going to have to do it for an extended period. And we also talked about it with Lucas that he's going to need to become a better defensive rebounder. He's going to need to show some, real effort and motor in that regard, because that has been lacking early this season. But do I think that his fit with pick and roll guards and dislike of Jordy's defensive system makes it so the Nets should trade him? No. I think that the Nets should do whatever in their best interest, what they view as the best outlook for the center position. Nick is fitting in right now in terms of offense. He's doing a great job. We talked about it on defense. He needs to improve. He doesn't like the defensive system, but that's something that he's just going to need to buy into. And I think that he will ultimately if the Nets are going to keep him on the roster. And you're starting to see better effort, better motor from him on the defensive end. So the Nets have to make an evaluation of, do they view Nick as a long-term piece? How do they feel about him with some of his strengths and some of his weaknesses? And do they feel like, depending on what the price is in the trade, what the market looks like for him, does it make more sense to ship him off and cash in on him at this value? And do they feel like Day'Ron Sharpe or whatever other plan they have at center, they can effectively replace Nick's production? Or do they feel like he's a good option and he's controlled at a price point that they're comfortable with? So those are all the determinations that they're going to have to make. But another Clax question, With Clax rising, what teams are looking to potentially trade in pieces for him? Charlotte has Kalkbrenner. Boston has Cada. I'd love to get a future first and a Pacers 26 swap for Claxton. I can't say right now like what teams are potentially looking to trade for Claxton because we're not even in trade season. It's very early right now. Like the unofficial start of trade season is December 15th when all the free agents who signed the prior offseason are eligible to be traded. So we're early right now. If I'm going to speculate and say what teams could be trying to trade for Nick Claxton, like I think you just need to look at teams that have a center need and are trying to contend or take a step towards contention. There's not that many of them around the NBA. Like if you look at it, like the Celtics, you mentioned Cada. The Celtics are a team that's obviously being thrown around because they don't really have center options. Like they have Cada, they have Boucher, they have whoever's like some other guys, but it's probably the worst center room in the NBA. Cada's actually not playing bad right now to start the season, but they're a team. But it's kind of, you don't really know if they want to cash in assets for Claxton this season or if they value Claxton at all. But if they do, say they like Claxton, they're a team that could very perceivably not be like hard tanking, but soft tanking. Like they don't have Tatum. This is a lost season. They have their own draft pick. I could very much see them as the season progresses, just saying like, we're going to try to shed salary, which could make them a trade partner with the Nets. I've talked about that in the past, but we're going to try to shed salary and we're going to try to, wherever our draft pick falls, it falls. And we're not really all that concerned with, trying to compete. So is it out of the question that they could trade for Claxton? No, because they are going to be trying to compete with Jason Tatum when he comes back the following season and the season after that. But I just don't know if they're giving up assets to try to improve their team in this season when they have their own draft pick and they perceivably, could be just looking to do kind of a soft tank. Outside of the Celtics, like the Hornets, sure, like they have Kalkbrenner. I don't really think that they're trading for Claxton, or giving up anything significant for Claxton when they just drafted Kalkbrenner. The Bulls are a team I could maybe look at, like Nikola Vucevic. Obviously, like there's been trade talk surrounding him. He's a lot older. He struggles in a lot of the areas that Nick would be a big boost at defensively and some of those things. Obviously, a different offensive player, but he's an expiring contract. Maybe the Nets could trade Nick to the Bulls, get some kind of asset. They're always trying to compete and be a middling team. So help them further in that task. And maybe you get back Vucevic in a draft pick and then you give them Claxton, and maybe that could be something that works. Because if the Nets were to do that and they get Vucevic's expiring for Clax, they add even more financial flexibility this summer. Other teams like 76ers have a big void in the middle outside of Joel Embiid, who obviously has his injury problem. The Pacers kind of in a similar situation to Boston, like trying to probably tank this season now, but going to be taking a step back towards contention. So could they look to get their center of the future? Maybe. Outside of that, there's not really anybody else, any other teams that jump out to me. But I do think that Claxton will have a market. It's just a matter of, do the Nets feel like it's worth it? And is the market justifying them? And how do they feel about their other prospects of backfilling that center position, as I said? But got a few more questions about Nets rookie. Also got some questions about the tank landscape of the NBA and with some teams potentially joining it. Should the Nets be worried? Should Nets fans be worried about other teams jumping them in the draft lottery standings? So that's all that when I close out Locked On Nets after a quick break. The NBA season is heating up, and DoorDash has found the perfect way to keep fans in their bag all season long. Whether you're watching for the highlights, your fantasy team, or just your favorite player, DoorDash makes every game night even better. DoorDash is the official on-demand delivery platform of the NBA, and they're celebrating with something called the Bag Drop. Every time an NBA player scores 50 points in a game, DoorDash drops 50% off your order with Dash Pass the next day, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win the ultimate fan bag. We're talking player-inspired drip, exclusive gear, and stuff you'll actually want. DoorDash has you covered for late-night highlights, last-minute watch parties, and double OT fuel-ups. So next time someone goes off for 50, use promo code NBA50 the next day to get 50% off on DoorDash with Dash Pass, plus your shot at the bag drop. Dash Pass members only, 50% off up to $10 the day after a 50-point game with promo code. Terms apply. No purchase necessary. Ends April 13th. Open to U.S. residents 21 or older. Visit DoorDashInYourBag.com for full details. DoorDash, in your bag all season long. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Coming back from the break, closing out today's Locked On Nets episode on this Fan Take Friday. Rolling on through all of your remaining takes and questions. Next one. Do you feel better or worse about Yegor's foot speed and lateral quickness after 10 NBA games? And do you think the injury may still be hampering him, or is he 100% now? He runs like his legs weigh 100 pounds. It's early in the season. Like, Yegor obviously is coming off that plantar fascia tear. Do I feel like great about his foot speed and lateral quickness? No. I think defensively it looks like pretty ugly sometimes, but I think some of that is also technique. Like, I think the moments where Yegor looks the worst defensively right now are his closeouts. His closeouts are really bad right now. And yes, there's a foot speed and lateral quickness aspect to that, but there's also a big technique aspect to that, which should get better in terms of, with experience and added, weight, added strength, all of those different things. But I would say that he hasn't said anything about the injury still hampering him, but he is coming off of a plantar fascia tear where he has said that he was immobile and not really doing anything for like multiple months. He was pretty much just off his feet. Like, he had some days where he was doing some stuff, and then a lot of days like he was just in bed and he was not doing anything, putting any weight on that. So we're not that far removed from that. And I feel like it is fair to think that his foot speed and his lateral quickness could get better the further you get removed from that. But that has been a concern about Yegor, especially in terms of him being like an on-ball creator. Like, he doesn't have an explosive first step. Do I think that he's like a total stiff? No, like, he looks stiff sometimes. He has high hips and some of those things, but I think that Yegor is going to be okay, and I would be encouraged by his performance of late. I think defensively, it doesn't look good, but he's a rookie. I expected that. I think that he'll get better, and the further that he gets removed from that injury, I think that we'll start to see some of it come back. Next question. With the recent news of Nico Harrison being fired and the Mavs' direction in flux, who do you think will be the biggest threats to the Nets in the tank outside of Washington? Good question. I think you're seeing the Pacers right now. Like, they obviously have a lot of guys hurt, but they're a team that has their own draft pick. They traded for it back. It's really just like a one-year tank like situation, kind of soft tank with them because they're going to get Halliburton back, but this is kind of a lost season. So if they decide, like, they have some good players, so it'll be tough for them to do that for the entire year. But if they decide as the year progresses, we're just going to mail this thing in and we're really going to go for it, like, they're a team that could be at the top. The Los Angeles Clippers look really bad right now, but they obviously have James Harden and Kawhi, so I don't think they're going to enter the conversation. Outside of that, like the Jazz are 3-7 or whatever they are right now, like 4-7. Like, it's better than the Nets, but they're a team that I fully expect to be bad as the year progresses. The Hornets, another team that could join the conversation. Like, I think it's a lot of the usual suspects. Outside of that, like the Pacers and Boston, but I don't think that they're going to be bad enough to really jump the Nets in the draft lottery standings because they just have some players that are so much better than what the Nets have at the top of the roster. So do I think there are many huge threats that I'd be that worried about? No, this team, I said it in the beginning of this podcast, the Nets did the tank right this year, and they really handicapped this roster to a point where it's one of the worst in the league, and the Nets just don't really have many avenues to competing, no matter how hard Jordy tries. So I wouldn't be too worried about that. Next question. What direction do you think the front office should take in the offseason in terms of team building? It's early to say right now, and I think a lot of that is going to depend on where the Nets land in the draft and what player they end up coming away with. Because this player that they get in this draft, especially if they land in the top 3, is perceivably going to be their franchise centerpiece and their future building block. And you look at the 3 that they have at the top, it's Darren Peterson, it's AJ DeBansta, it's Cam Boozer, and all of those guys are very different players. Like, you have Peterson, who's this kind of silky smooth 2-guard. You have DeBansta, who's this bigger wing who can do some ball handling stuff. And then you have Boozer, who's this power forward. It's they're all different archetypes. And then outside of that, you have Nate Ament, Mikael Brown, Caleb Wilson, whoever else you want to say. Whatever player they land in the draft is going to influence how they build their team and how they shape it around their player. Now, I said it on the pod with Lucas that I think that they're going to try to take a step back towards competing next season because they owe the Houston Rockets an unprotected first-round pick swap. So I would say that the one thing that I hope, because I said this, that them owing that pick swap unprotected is going to influence their decision making, and they're going to try to get better next season. And they're going to try. Sean Marks is going to try to prove his worth and perceivably keep his job. So I understand that, and that's going to be a factor because they don't want to gift Houston a top pick. But at the end of the day, something we've been through before with this Nets team, that is a sunk cost. So they should be trying to improve. They should be trying to get better. But I don't want them kind of just going to the quick fixes and going to all these things and just trying to expedite the timeline and doing things that aren't really in their best interest just to avoid giving a top pick to Houston. I would say you can try to get better. You can try to compete. You can try to take a step back from winning. They should do step back towards winning. They should do that, but do it correct. Do it at the correct pace. Continue to build. If an opportunity arises and you can expedite the timeline, sure. But for the most part, do it correct. Continue to build. We've seen things like with, this Houston team, obviously, with the Magic. The Spurs obviously had a lot of luck. Like, you got to have some lottery luck, but those teams built it out and they continued, not just completely fast tracking it. You can take some in between moves and you can have that approach a little bit, but don't mortgage the future for anything when the team is in no position to do that. That's what I would say. And that's the way that I really hope that they approach it. But that's all the questions I have on this episode. Appreciate all of you who continue to submit questions and participate and continue to allow me to do these mailbag episodes. I really enjoy it. But if you guys do not already, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Nets on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, whether Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you like the content, smash that like button, leave a comment, leave a 5-star review. Anything you do to engage is much appreciated. But the Nets got the Orlando Magic on Friday, then they're in Washington on Sunday, and then they're coming back home. So I have coverage of all that and more when I'm back on Monday talking more Brooklyn Nets basketball.